AI is rewriting the business playbook, with productivity boosts and faster decision-making coming to every industry. If you're not thinking about AI, you can bet your competition is. This is not where you want to drop the ball. But AI requires a lot of compute power. And with most cloud platforms, the cost for your AI workloads can spiral. That is, unless you're running on OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. This was the cloud built for AI, a blazing fast enterprise-grade platform for your infrastructure, database, apps, and all your AI workloads. OCI costs 50% less than other major hyperscalers for compute, 70% less for storage, and 80% less for networking. Thousands of businesses have already scored with OCI, including Vodafone, Thomson Reuters, and Suno AI. Now the ball's in your court.
Right now, Oracle can cut your current cloud bill in half if you move to OCI. Minimum financial commitment and other terms apply. Offer ends March 31st. See if your company qualifies for this special offer at oracle.com/strategic. That's oracle.com/strategic.
Sail to breathtaking destinations in Alaska or Europe with the Disney Cruise Line. Discover where onboard magic meets onshore adventures, where beloved characters
Hiya, pal!
meet alluring landscapes, where Broadway quality shows meet historic cities, where imaginative dining meets amazing wildlife, and where exciting experiences await the whole family. Book an adventure-filled summer Disney cruise to Alaska or Europe.
This is what you do when you have high standards and fancy all the fancy things, like a Dior saddlebag or that diamond tennis bracelet. You go to eBay. There you'll find new loves that will never disappoint, expertly authenticated. Whether it's that vintage pearl necklace or brand new ruby earrings, a Prada crossbody bag, or classic watches like that Rolex Oyster or that Cartier tank. On eBay, there are no limits to your high standards. Yeah, eBay, the place for new, pre-loved, vintage, and rare fashion. eBay, things people love.
Hey there, this is Matt.
And Joel from the How to Money podcast.
Indeed. And this spring is a great time to start thinking about travel plans for the summer, figuring out how you're going to pay for that travel as well. And one great way to financially support your travel is to host your home on Airbnb. It's simple and a great way to make some extra cash.
And now the Airbnb co-host network makes hosting even easier. You can access a network of high-quality local co-hosts who can help you with everything. They'll handle all of the messaging with guests and make sure everything is ready for their arrival. Find a co-host at airbnb.com/host.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Zoe, and you're listening to Climbing in Heels for your weekly dose of glamour, inspiration, and fun. Okay, today I'm joined by the incredible friend duo and talented women behind the hair care and hair wellness brand, Highbrow Hippie. After working with some of Hollywood's biggest stars, Kadi Lee and Myka Harris launched Highbrow Hippie as a blog, sharing beauty and wellness tips, which evolved into an atelier salon and now incredible products that support hair loss and hair health. These incredible women have such a clear vision for their brand, and their method of working quietly is fascinating and inspiring. So let's get right into it.
I'm very excited to talk to you. I've known of you for many, many years. I know many of the extraordinary women that you work with. But I first want to go back because Climbing in Heels is really about celebrating and talking about the journey. And also similar to a seat at the table dinners, it's about talking about how hard it is for us as women in general to make it in anything, let alone have a dream. I want to go back a little bit to, like, how did you even find each other? How does this even happen? Because, I think you've probably lived and worked long enough to know that, partnerships, especially with friends, it doesn't always work, right? And this is clearly working. So I want to talk a little bit about how it started and what happened.
So we met almost 30 years ago in college.
Yeah.
And we were both working in fashion at BCBG.
Really? And where?
Atlanta, Georgia. We were both students at Spelman College. Myka was getting ready to leave for Paris to go to Parsons for her grad degree, and I was a freshman. And yeah, it was our after-school job, and it was a good one. And I don't know, we just kind of fell into lockstep pretty quickly. That was the first meeting, and then there were a few years in between where I was still in school. Myka was in school, but at Parsons in Paris. And then we both ended up in New York City. And I was working at Frederick Fekkai. And I think at that point, Myka, ironically, was working for DVF, of all people, who is now a client.
Wow.
And then working for the world's first like trend forecaster.
She was, a beauty futurologist. So I was working with her doing trend forecasting on the beauty front.
Wow.
Yes. And then one day,
what year was that?
2001.
It would have been 2001 because it was
for 9/11. That's how we'll always know 2001.
Yeah.
There, and I was going to Diane's studio, and
isn't that funny? Like such, passing ships. Yeah. But it was a true New York story where we were both on Madison Avenue. We walked right into each other, like actually bumped into each other.
Yeah.
Liar.
Yeah.
Actually.
Walked right into each other. And then discovered that we lived around the corner from one another in Brooklyn. And we went to have dinner at our little local neighborhood spot. And then that was it. We were just kind of off to the races.
You're in your 20s and you were
just
this was meant to be, really bumped into each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's so wild.
And I never walked, by the way. I was one of those bougie, 21-year-olds who spent every dime that I made at the salon on car services back to Brooklyn.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
By the way, I love that about you. I see you, by the way.
And I was the complete opposite. I'm on the subway, going back to Brooklyn, but it's our highbrow hippie.
Don't you feel like Venice is Brooklyn-ish? Not literally, but just I feel like people who live in Venice, if they move to New York, might live in Brooklyn and vice versa.
I mean, listen, there's definitely through lines and there's a reason why we both live here for sure.
Yeah, of course.
It has a bit more of just a freedom to it. And even though it's changed a lot in the past few years, it still has a very neighborly quality.
Yeah,
Venice is cool.
So you're in Brooklyn. You come out here. When do you come here?
Well,
what happened
between Brooklyn and here? I mean, a lot happened. Myka got married and moved to Europe.
Yeah, got it. That's a glitch. That's a glitch in the system.
Yeah. Then I moved to LA about 3 years during the time that you were in Europe because I would go back and forth.
Right.
And then once Myka was separated and back in Atlanta, we just would talk about what if we just started this blog. And one of Myka's boyfriends used to call her a bourgeois bohemian. And we were like, well, we can't call it that because Americans will butcher the name.
Yeah.
I love the word highbrow. And then Myka just said the word hippie and the alliteration was working. And we just were that's it. That's the name for a blog. Ready to go.
I love it. So you just started blogging, and that was what, 2000-ish?
12, 11, 12.
Where it was called a blog.
Yeah,
it was actually a blog. We have this list that we made, and I looked at it the other day as a manifesting list and what Highbrow Hippie could be. And it was one day we're going to have a brick and mortar. Then we're going to have a coffee table book. Then we're going to have a product line. I mean, and we literally wrote every single thing down before we even launched the blog. And a lot of those things today are true.
Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that wild? Because you don't even remember doing that sometimes, and two other female founders that have a clothing line told me when I met her in COVID, because we were both in Malibu, and she said, I manifested you. And I said, what do you mean? She's fashion obsessed. And she used to write this list of people that she knew were going to be in her life at some point. And I never believed in that. And not that I didn't believe in it, but I'm scared to put those things down because if you don't achieve them, then I feel like a failure. Right. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting with you guys because it's almost like everything kept bringing you back, right, together.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like the fact that you had the same shared dreams, the fact that you kind of lived your separate lives and then together lives, right? Because you guys don't seem the type to me, from the little I know you, to put yourselves out there in a very public manner, a very loud manner, or a very soliciting manner. I find you to be quite the opposite. So clearly it's your talent that actually got you where you are, because you do touch and style, obviously hundreds and maybe thousands of heads and hair and people, but like you inarguably do some of the biggest names in the world and who have access to anyone in the business. So despite how nice, despite how professional, despite how whatever, you're clearly both extremely talented. So I want to sort of talk about that, because it's very hard to launch a brand and product and brick and mortar and all the things while still maintaining the integrity of the brand.
Right.
So I want to talk about that. The talent is obviously what's speaking over everything else. So I want to talk about like how you sort of balance the still touching the people and doing what you do to still keep the other parts of it going strong, because it's the other parts of it that is the actual tangible business, right? And coming up as a stylist and then launching a brand and product, I know how hard it is. I know how scary it is, but I do know you get to that inflection point where you're like, what I do is providing a service. What I do is dictated by how hard I work, right? Like every minute I work is how much I make, more or less. And at some point you say, what happens if you need to have something that can live on beyond you or outside of you, right? So at what point did you guys decide to say, okay, let's do some of these things that we've dreamed about, talked about? Because it's scary.
It is. I'm going to say something really quickly, Myka, then I want you to build on it. Because you asked a few questions. One point that you made is that we do work really hard and we work in silence. And we've never felt,
which is rare.
Yeah.
It's like we laugh because we feel as though, you know, people are like, whoa, surprised sometimes when we do things. And it's like,
we've been here.
We've been here. Like, we've been here. We've been doing this, and you keep going.
Overnight success of 20 years of work.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like we are two very grown women. But so you first touch on the service point. And as you know, like you cannot maintain a career of 25 years in this industry with the clients that I've amassed being a colorist by not being excellent. And there are a few things that always drive that. Like, you know, Myka and I have never been one to kind of bat around a subject. And the bottom line is, as a Black woman in the beauty industry, I did not have a choice but to be excellent. Yeah. I couldn't fall back on anything. It wasn't about my like winning personality, although, you know, catch me on the right day, I could be pretty funny. But like usually it all comes down to, am I doing good work?
Yeah.
So while I was focused on really just being really excellent at my craft, and I was always known as the hardest worker. Like I will outwork anyone. I love it. You know, I'm a Leo and I'm a Jamaican immigrant. So like, it's like put any stereotype on me with that. And like, I'm going to do it. What
you sound like a Virgo.
Oh, we both have Virgo tendencies, actually. Mm-hmm. You should see the level of attention.
I feel it.
Like, why are these papers not in the stack? We're very meticulous.
Myka, they don't see what we see. No. You know, I mean, we serve every single beverage at Highbrow Hippie with a pressed linen napkin. It's to the next level. It's kind of disturbing sometimes. But going back to how it happened, you know, while I was busy building very slowly, you know, Myka was also in Atlanta owning a company in the beauty space. She owned like Atlanta's first natural waxing and nail studio. So she had some experience on the back end of actually running a business and running it well. I knew, obviously everything changed when Julia Roberts became my client. She put a level of trust in me that really took my confidence to the next level. And once that happened and we knew that we could create a space where women who were discerning and who really craved peace and privacy could go, we knew that we could put our heads together, not only create a physical space that was like everything we ever dreamed of, but we could also translate that into a product that people could take home as well.
By the way, Julia's unbelievable. I think it's like, she's magic.
She's actual magic and extraordinary human beings ever, you know, but her and Serge Normant, who's my mentor.
I love him.
I mean,
I love that man. I love him. Like, I love him. Like when I see him, it is like,
it's love,
a love, a warmth.
Mm-hmm.
He is one of the greatest of all time, as not just talent, but just as a light, like a human being. And it makes sense, all of it, that Julia chooses all of you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like the most junior person kind of in the long-term squad. And I've been around for over 15 years with her. So she really, she chooses her family. We choose her right back. Serge and Julia have been such big supporters of Myka and I. She was the very first person to ever step into Highbrow Hippie, the physical space.
Wow.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're going to dream a dream of who's ever going to walk into your space, I'm pretty sure Julia Roberts is number one.
Yeah. I mean, is there any more iconic hair that exists?
And the smile.
By the way, I was going to say, it's the hair, it's the smile, it's her, it's all the things. And she chose you. That's the thing. That's my point. It's like, your success is for a reason. Yeah. And I always say, the people that stand out, you can get somewhere, you can have an introduction, you can have help, you can have all the things, but the talent ultimately is the only thing that will keep you there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can get there. You can get there.
Exactly. Yeah. One thing I wanted to add in terms of building this sustainable brand, I think that one thing that has always worked for us, and it's kind of overused, but this idea of being authentic, like everything that we're doing, that we're putting out, that we're discussing, that we are trying to share with our clients and our community is authentically what we would want for ourselves, you know? And so we're viewing it through that lens. Often, like, you know, if we were on the other side of this, what would work for us? And sometimes, you know, we're doing things and people are like, oh, I don't really know about that. But eventually it catches up, you know, like we might be seen as doing something that's slightly against the grain. You know, Katie kind of touched on this earlier. It's like, she didn't really have a choice, you know, it's like, you're this Black woman, you're showing up in this way. And so you have to have the hard conversation. You have to acknowledge certain things. So we've always been like very outspoken around politics and things that were happening in our world as a startup brand, you know, because it was very authentic to us. And now, of course, everyone's, you know, discusses this idea of, you know, who are you as a brand? Like, authentically, are you expressing yourself? And, you know, we've always done that and we'll continue to be that way.
I think that the consumer or client, I think they see authenticity, they know it. Then I think they're given credit for, you know?
Yeah.
I'd love for you to talk about sort of what is most exciting to you, like in terms of what you're doing now, like in terms of product, in terms of the space. Are you planning on opening more?
Oh God.
No. So brutal, right? So, like the best thing and the hardest.
Employees, like good where we are. We love a small team. We love a small space.
Smaller the better.
Who in their right mind would take on more real estate right now? You know, it's not worth it. But I will say, what sometimes brands that launch a product, what they do is they launch the product and then they try to find the community afterwards around that product. I think what really is working for us and has always worked is that we had the community first.
Yeah.
And then we leaned on them before we launched one product, before we designed any packaging. Myka had this idea. We did this huge survey and we really took the downtime that we had during COVID, like seriously. And While we were scrambling to make sure that the atelier could even stay open, we got this survey up and running, and we asked our clients everything about their beauty closet. What are you buying right now? How much are you spending? What are your top 3 items? What are your top 5 items? What are your top 10 items? Yeah. And we took that information and took their concerns, and that was our starting point for developing our product line. So we have this community of women that it's like the best secret, that they are the most discerning. They want us to succeed, but they also want us to make things that they can use.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And how big is the range now of products?
We just launched with 2 more coming out in a few months.
I think you roll out slow and steady.
Yeah. Slow and steady, but by the end of next year, we'll have about 8 in the
I think that's great. I love it. And it's always neat. What kind of affects you and what doesn't? Like what makes it hard to go to sleep? Do you have fears about doing this? It's because just being an entrepreneur is very different than being an artist.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has fears. I certainly do. And, I'm in the throes of perimenopause, as is Myka. So
it's so fun.
Yeah. So anxiety and lack of sleep and worrying at night is just part of the game. But I mean, of course you have fears. Listen, I worry, are we late? But then if we're late, just do it better.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I don't have fears. I feel like we have this army of women behind us that like always I look to them and I just know it's going to be okay. I know that one thing that Myka and I feel like I'm talking too much, so I'm going to shut up real soon, Myka. But one thing that her and I...
Something tells me you guys would cut each other off if you needed to.
Yeah, we would.
Yeah. What? But one thing that I think is important that a lot of people don't talk about as entrepreneurs is that we've always had the same end game. And we always knew that in a few years, we do want to sell the company. We want to exit. We want to do different things with our lives. We want to have different chapters in our lives. Mm-hmm. And I think once you know where you're going, it's easy to just be in the present because then you know what you're working towards. Like one person said to us, like, I mean, how could you be thinking ahead? Like, don't you want to hold on to it forever? And we're both like, no.
We sure don't.
Nope.
It's like we want to build something great, and pass it off to someone else, because I think that's the fun. I mean, for me, the fun is in the building, right? Like having this thing that you build, you create, and then you iterate and you build something else, you create that. And at some point, you hand it off to somebody else to continue doing that. Are they going to do it the way that you would do it? No. But at that point,
who cares?
Who cares?
That's okay because it's different. I'm a huge believer in, not for everybody, but I'm a huge believer in building something to the point where you have maxed out what you can do for it. And then it's time for it to fly with somebody else, spread the wing, move on, and I think that's, at least for me, I think that's just it's kind of making peace with like exactly what you said. It's like creating something and growing it. And then at some point you wake up and go, it's like time to fly with somebody else now, and it doesn't always happen. And it's not necessarily the dream for everybody. I've had amazing founders on the pod that are just like, no, I have no exit plan. That's never my thing. And then I have people like, I'm exiting it in 2 years from now. I'm like, Jesus.
It's tax season. And by now I know we're all a bit tired of numbers, but here's an important one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much money in refunds the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Here's another, 20%. That's the overall increase in identity theft related to tax fraud in 2024 alone. But it's not all grim news. Here's a good number, 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, LifeLock's US-based restoration specialists will fix it, backed by another good number, the $1 Million Protection Plan. In fact, restoration is guaranteed or your money back. Don't face identity theft and financial losses alone. There's strength in numbers with LifeLock Identity Theft Protection for tax season and beyond. Join now and save up to 40% your first year. Call 1-800-LifeLock and use promo code IHEART or go to lifelock.com/iHeart for 40% off. Terms apply.
This is what you do when you have high standards and fancy all the fancy things, like an iconic Dior saddlebag or that diamond tennis bracelet. You go to eBay. There you'll find new loves that will never disappoint, expertly authenticated and everything. Whether it's that vintage pearl necklace or brand new ruby earrings, a Prada crossbody bag to be besties with your other handbags, even an eternally classic watch like that Rolex Oyster or that Cartier Tank. You know the one. And when you find it, eBay has their experts' eyes to make sure you're getting the real deal. That way you can be confident that the designer finds you came for, the luxury wardrobe you've always wanted, it's all real. In fact, it's verified authentic. So bring your high standards and never limit what you can find. Yeah, eBay, the place for new, pre-loved, vintage, and rare fashion. eBay, things people love.
Yeah.
You guys, I'm so impressed with you. I think surrounding yourself with people like the Emma Greeds of the world, even though there's only one Emma Greed, by the way, and like Diane von Furstenberg, I think these are women that I think we need to get inspired by women like this regularly and surround ourselves with women like who do quite frankly give you have you guys ever had any challenges like working together? Because as I said, the best friend thing, the partner thing, it doesn't always work, but when it does, it's like the perfect magic, right? And so what do you think makes it work so well with you guys? And have you ever had a moment where you felt like you couldn't agree on where you wanted to take something, or are you always so in sync?
Oh no, 100%.
No.
We're human. Of course, we're two very.
No, I think it's great. I think it's healthy.
Yeah, we're two very different individuals, and I think because we have the same end goal, we're always going to be on the same page. And like that thing where if someone else talks about your family, you're fighting them, but you all could fight internally. Nobody can come for Myka.
Nobody can come for Kadi.
But when it comes to the two of us, we're both Leo women. It is gnarly sometimes. I don't know. Even when, I'm sure I drive her nuts, and even when she's driving me nuts, it's just kind of like we retreat to our corners and you just keep it moving, because the world is against Black women enough. At the end of the day, we're never going to throw each other under the bus. Right. We have different strengths. We try to go back to highlight those strengths, but we're not as close as friends anymore. But I don't think that is necessarily a bad thing. I think it makes us better business partners. I think she needs different things out of friendships. She's a mom and I'm not. And I need different things out of friendships that support my phase in life. I don't know. I think having the shared history helps because there's trust there. I'm not going to let somebody else come in and, know half the things about my life that Myka does and vice versa. Yeah. But we're just very different people.
One thing I want to touch on is you mentioned perimenopause. And I feel like menopause is this thing where it's the weirdest thing because no one talked about it for 100 years. And now I feel like there isn't a room you walk into where women aren't talking about it.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I think, very big public women are talking about it, writing books about it. And from Halle Berry, Naomi Watts, it goes on, Gwyneth, everyone. And I think I want to talk about that because I think something that I imagine is a huge conversation in your salon is hair loss, because I feel like I must hear a friend or a dinner or an event or literally anything. There's someone I know or don't know that says, oh my God, my hair's falling out from the age of 38 to 55. It's just oh my God, my hair used to be this, or I know that that's some of the focus of the product, but tell me how that impacts you and how often you hear this in the room. Cause I imagine it's daily.
I mean, it's
hourly.
Yeah. So one interesting thing is that, I'm in my 25th year of being a hair colorist. And a lot of the clients that I started with when I was in my 20s are now going through the same phase of life that Myka and I are. If they're not going through perimenopause, they're going through postpartum. And if they're not going through that, then they're dealing with maybe an illness or some sort of chronic condition. And again, going back to that survey that we took, there was not one person that did not want help with their hair health and their hair loss. And so we knew that there was absolutely no freaking way we were going to launch with a shampoo and conditioner.
Right.
Nobody talk about saturated. Nobody wants it. Nobody needs it. And
nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Unless it's literally putting liquid gold in your head to grow your hair.
Yeah.
That's the only way it's going to stand out at this point.
So our poor chemists and formulators, I mean, we were like, okay, that's great. What else? What else? And we would just push it. And like, listen, before it also became trendy, Myka was taking all sorts of herbs and things. I mean, it became clear that like a supplement was going to be one of the first go-tos, but we had to, it also was clear that we had to have some sort of through line with the internal and the external, because they both were affecting hair health and hair loss. That's where our strengths also came in. Myka really took the lead with the supplement. I took the lead with the serum. We got to both kind of put it together. And that's where our next two releases are both a topical and internal as well. So we're creating a tea that has some of the same properties as the supplement, along with one of probably the best hair mask I've ever used in my whole career. And that is saying a lot. So again, having our clients lead the charge and what are the most important things that they're needing right now. So yeah, I just think no one's really approaching it the way that we are. Like, we're not, you know, pick a brand, like, you know, it's not shampoo, conditioner, hairspray, like like that doesn't even make sense to us. It's not how we run the business on a day-to-day basis. People come in there really obviously for excellent color and styling, but really to have, like, we're kind of known to like be the fixers. And you know, that's how I got Emma and Gwyneth and DVF and all of these women. And we look at these women walking through our doors who cannot be any more picky. And they're like,
that's my point.
Yeah, we trust.
You guys are doing something very right over there. Taking hormones out of it. I know that's a bold statement because you can't really take hormones out of anything. So I don't really mean it that way. I just mean hair 101. You know, as someone who is not adventurous with hair, I mean, I literally am like Cher in the 70s right now. Like, my hair, I don't cut it. I don't, like, it's my security blanket, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think for many women it is. I've had, unfortunately, many friends go through cancer, and it's obviously, I would say, the thing that hurts most is when they lose hair. And because they don't feel like women anymore. They feel that they look in the mirror at that point and go, now I have cancer, right? And I went through this with one of my very best friends. And it's like hard, I get emotional when I say it. But I think hair is one of the most important things to us as women. And I think that when we talk about how do we preserve that? Why is everyone losing their hair? Like, meaning, I know it's hormonal. I know it's all the shifts and all the things, right? But I also know one of my best friend's moms is 75 with the most gorgeous full head of hair you've ever seen. And it's like Rapunzel. I mean, it's gorgeous. So I do want to understand, I guess, from where you are, is it the color? Is it bad colorist? Is it just like, what is it that is killing the hair? Or is it all of it? I know that's a very loaded question, but I think for my listeners, I want to share what young people, and then just going all the way up, can do to sort of preserve the health of their hair.
I'll start with the external stuff. Then I'm going to have Myka take over on some of the other factors that are contributing. Listen, from the beginning, I've never been the colorist that wanted to like fry anybody's hair.
Yeah,
like you cannot reverse some of that. And my kind of signature is like, how can we make like this color the best version of what your hair really wants to do? And obviously there are some exceptions to the rule. Like, I have to take Julia from blonde to red to, you know, all the things for her different roles. But for the most part, people have always come to us to correct bad color, to get them on like a healthy track with a good relationship with hair color. And it seems productive because, you know, you want people coming back often so you can have their money. But like, really? Do you? Because if their hair is healthy and then they're stuck with you for like decades instead of then leaving you after a couple of years because you've damaged it, you're making more return that way.
Of course.
So I've always banked my career on that and been very happy with it. It may kind of pigeonhole me as maybe the boring one, but I can tell you I can fix anything and then once it's fixed, they never want to leave, you know?
Will you say no if someone says, I want to go platinum, right? And you look at their hair and you go,
that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. Your hair is also a very different animal when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, on and on and on.
As in everything.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll tell them like, okay, you really want to try it. The hair ages just like we do. So if you really want to try it, and I think the hair can handle it and they're good with doing a good chop afterwards, as far as the other factors of hair loss, I'll have Myka speak to that.
Well, when you were talking about it, I was thinking about one of the major contributors to this is stress too.
Yeah,
like, I mean, think about like the society and the culture that we're living in. Like we're constantly engaged. We're constantly being fed horrific news of things that are happening not only in our backyard, but around the world. And social media, we're ingesting all of these things and comparing ourselves to other people all the time. So I think a big part of it is the stress, and what that stress does throughout our body. It creates inflammation, it throws your adrenals into overdrive, and that has a compounding effect on the rest of your body. And it shows up in your hair, primarily hair and skin. So it's a big contributor.
And when we started our research, we found out that over 75% of women will experience hair loss in their lifetime.
Yeah. That is mental.
It's so mental.
It is mental. And that needs to be said louder.
Yeah.
Because my first experience was after my first son, and then it got really, really thick.
Mm-hmm.
And then after my second son, it just was different.
Yeah.
It just was different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, you guys really take everything, don't you? Like our hearts, our hair.
They don't talk about it loud enough. And one thing that we've never had a problem with is talking. We'll talk about anything and everything. We'll chat about it. If it's taboo, even better. We're like, let's talk about it more, and hair loss is one of those things. And our clients seeing that we actually were really working towards a solution, they were like, we'll trust you guys. You haven't led us wrong so far. So like Myka was saying, this constant bombardment of connection with so much technology as well. I mean, I haven't seen a person that is as technology challenged as Myka. Like she will lose her phone on purpose.
I lost my phone on Saturday. I still don't have a new phone yet. I lost it at the Balloon Museum downtown. And somebody's like, aren't you freaking out? And I'm like, well, not really, because I can text from my computer and I've been working in front of my computer. So I think this afternoon I'll go get a new one.
Yeah. And then like social media.
That's wild.
I'm on the Highbrow Hippie account, but I don't have a personal one because like, I don't need any more,
if I didn't have to have it for my brand, I don't think I would have it at all.
Yeah. It's too much.
There's a way that your brain can relax when you don't feel that you have to be putting something out and responsive
or available.
But in business with a brand, as you have to be, right? You have to just figure out how you want to play the game. You don't have to play it the same as everyone else, but you do have to be in it.
Absolutely.
I think that we've worked recently and over the years, we've had a lot of ups and downs with our business. And we opened 8 months to the day before COVID and had to shut down. We were one of the first ones that had to close and the last businesses that were allowed to open. So we've done a lot of this, and we didn't even touch on prior to this things like our relationship with an old investor that went south. I mean, that's a whole nother episode. But
Dave, I've been there. We've all been there. And I can tell you right now, every single woman at that table at Emma's house has been there.
Yeah.
At least once. So
it was devastating. And we wasted about 7 years trying to get like Highbrow Hippie, the first iteration of it, off the ground. And we had to start over from scratch.
Okay, I want to talk about that for a second. Okay, I'm not going to let you I'm not going to let you pass over that, because the whole intention of Climbing in Heels is talking about that. And every woman that I've had on here, every single one has said the same thing. it's like, you know, this brand because this is the brand that's winning, but there was so many fails before this that you never heard about, that I cried in my kitchen, that I cried in my closet, that I lost everything, that I, you know, and the stories are endless and they're always going to be. And I think at the end of the day, what goes public typically is the win, right? Yeah. You know, some people fall harder than others. Some people it hurts more than others. 7 years is a lot. I mean, it's a lot. And you're never going to forget it and you learn from it, but it's also why you are where you are now. Yeah. And so I think it's sort of like in those moments, you just have to, I think, trust the universe has some plan that you just may not know about yet.
And with the way things worked out is that we were able to gain 100% control of the company. So that means for a much more handsome exit when we're ready to do so. And when it was time to rebuild, the fact that we still had our same mission and we just kept at it, that's when I knew we were going to be okay. You know, we both didn't falter. We were like, okay, we had to do it in a different way. We did it in a smaller footprint. It ended up being better. We had less overhead. Like we did it in a smaller space, but it was one that we could really control. And then if we had opened up the original footprint that we planned on, then getting shut down with COVID, we would have been dead in the water.
We would, yeah, because our overhead would have been so high.
I still think of the day we found out that that deal went south, and I get a feeling, a pit in my stomach that to this day stops me in my tracks.
I do know that feeling, and more people know that feeling than you know.
Yeah. And I did want to say, because we've, you know, touched on the Emmas and the Julias and Gwyneths and all the people that, you know, are well known that are in our corner. You know, my very first client was this woman named Suzanne Nora Johnson, and she's still my client today. And Suzanne Nora was the first female managing director of Goldman Sachs. And I used to shampoo her hair as an assistant at Frederick Fekkai. And she said, when you get promoted, I'm going to become your client. She said, I just like your hustle. I like the way you work. Suzanne Nora Johnson has been there for Myka and I in ways that are just, it could literally make me cry. She was just always there for us. She's a woman that, you know, few people may know her name, but like she's now the current chair of the board at USC. She took over for Rick Caruso, Cash. And but she's just this legend who she's always treated us. It didn't matter if we were 22 or now in our late 40s. Suzanne has always treated us as smart, capable women. Whenever we really needed like just the real deal, she would give it to us. And she is now, you know, one of our investors, as are many of our longtime clients. Those women, and there are many women like Suzanne. Our lead investor is a client of mine who I've had for 23 years, who nobody would know. Yep. And she is not rich or famous, but she gave us $250,000 on the spot.
You have to think about that, because as someone who is an investor, you know, there are moments where I meet women that are so impressive in these moments. And I'm like, are you doing a raise? Like, are you, because you want to be part of their orbit. Yeah. Because you are a believer. And to me, I think especially, I do think that's a little bit how women invest. It's kind of like the same way we approach anything in life, right? With our heart, right? It's sort of like you feel it, you're connected to it, you believe in it, because otherwise you can't do it.
Yeah. Right? One of your biggest fans, a mutual friend, Cleo Wade. She love, you know, Cleo, I've only been friends with her for a few years. Cleo brought multiple investors to the table that ended up accounting for a huge part of our raise, including herself. We've just had these people show up for us in big ways, and not all of them are big names. And I think it's important for people.
They don't need to be.
They don't need to be.
They don't need to, like, you know, anonymous.
Yeah.
It's just having that support. It's just having that support. And I'll tell you this, And I think it's part of why Emma started 15% with Aurora and started doing a seat at the table dinners with Stephanie from Google, because these are champions of women. But what I will say is women don't just support and write checks to be cool. And it doesn't matter how much money they have or don't have. They invest if they're believers. They invest if they connect with it. And I've seen that over and over, because I've also seen women not be able to get a check from a woman,
Right.
So I see that a lot. So it's not because you're a woman. It's not, it's not for any of those reasons. It's because the talent is there, because they're experiencing it, because they're living it, and because they believe in it. And I am so excited to watch you guys grow. And timing is everything, guys. And everything happens for a reason. I believe that. I've lived it.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, I've lived it. And there are those moments where you like sit in your closet just crying by yourself, and you're like, I can't, I'm done. Like this is like, I'm exiting stage left. I cannot do this. And then, you get that light, and you get that client, and you get that woman who's like, yeah, you're doing this, and this is how, and this is why. And these are the people that are going to come join the room. And, and you get that, and you don't forget that. So I'm here for the ride. I'm here to watch you guys. I'm going to come in and have you guys, transform me. I adore you both. You're so impressive. I'm so obsessed with Highbrow Hippie, and so is everybody. And, I think we're really excited for everyone to be able to get a piece of Highbrow Hippie now. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much to Kadi and Myka for coming on the pod today. I have mad respect and admiration for what they've built and what they have planned for the future. The women, famous and not known, just brilliant women that continue to support them and help them grow and live their brand, just is a testament to the talent and the authenticity of their brand. I mean, you guys, Julia Roberts. It's like, there's another 50 names that are the most famous in the world, but let's just start and end with Julia. And I just want to say I learned a lot today. I got very inspired today. I also love keeping it real. I also love talking about what feels like a failure in the moment in order to move forward and be exactly where you're meant to be. So thank you so much for listening to Climbing in Heels. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the iHeart app, or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode this season. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at Rachel Zoe and the show at Climbing in Heels Pod for the latest episodes and updates. I will talk to you soon.